Next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we've got the minutes issued straight.
Yes, we do. Next item is the approval or any additions or corrections to the minutes of the February 5th meeting. Any recommendations, suggestions, changes on the February 5th minutes? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes for February pass. Now we need to back up to the minutes of December 4th. It had been brought to my attention that something was stated in the minutes that was not accurate, and then I reread the minutes again, that once I received the finalized copy, and it was inaccurate, I went to the tape and watched it on tape, and found that we do need to correct these because it's a major problem. According to the minutes of December 4th, we made a recommendation to approve the PenMed application, and we did not. We discussed it at that meeting. We made suggestions and so forth that we would like to see, but there was no action taken one way or the other. What reads in the minutes as recommendation, if approved ordinance on the 11th, we will see you at the January meeting. If it is not approved, we will move forward with the by right biomed plan. That was stated by Dave Falcone, who was the attorney for PenMed. That was not stated by me or the board. And then it follows with approved 6-0. There was absolutely no decision made on this, other than the fact that we'll see what happens, basically.
Correct.
So that's why we need to make this correction. Are there any other additions? Did anybody else have a chance to look at the video on that? Okay. Well, be that way. Okay, from those that were here, is there a recommendation to correct this?
Well, I would recommend that we correct it so that the language, this is on page 2 of the minutes, where it says recommendation in bold, or that the name Dave Falcone be substituted, and the remainder of the language stays the same, and that below that sentence from Mr. Falcone, where it says approved 6-0, that be stricken in its entirety.
Along with the names of the planning commission
Along
members?
with the names of the
Yes.
planning commission members, that's
Okay.
correct.
Is there a second on that?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. May we have a corrected copy sent out to us, please, Trish, after this is done?
Yes,
Okay,
Madam
thank
Chair.
you. And I think, so in the future, we don't run into this problem again. It probably would be a good idea if we can get the minutes beforehand, send them out to everybody, make any corrections then, and then we can have a corrected set of minutes at the meeting that we vote upon.
Madam Chairman, we're doing exactly that. So our goal is to get you the draft minutes a week and a half after this meeting, get your comments back, and then that set of minutes will go in your packet for a
Great.
final perusal
Appreciate
by the
that.
chair, by the Planning Commission.
I think we were probably also busy in December and Christmas and everything, that it just kind of, passed by without us noticing it. When we approved the minutes, I guess it would have been in January or February, whenever we got them. But I think if we do it this way, then in the future, we won't run into a problem with that. Thank you. Okay. The only item on the agenda tonight in the way of subdivisions is 415 Maplewood Road. Is the applicant here? Hi, Nick.
Okay, this should work. As I had mentioned, this is a site that is currently non-conforming as to use. It's basically used as a construction yard currently. I do have some pictures. You'll see some old barn-type structures. So it's used currently for commercial purposes chiefly. We have nonconformities as to the structures and their setbacks, as to the use, and as to impervious coverage as well. The proposal here is to bring everything into conformity and basically to build a townhome development, which is similar to a lot of other townhome developments that have been built in Wayne in the last couple of years. I guess one thing is I think the board is aware that the number of buildings have been reduced from 12, which was an original number, to now it's number 10. The number's 10 now. Was 14 original? Well, way back it was 14, then from 12 to 10. Okay. So we have kind of attempted to comply as well as we can with the township consultants' comments, and I know the applicants met with the consultants several times as well. I guess I'll go into the comments. It's probably the best way to start, since I think the board's familiar with the plan itself. So I'll go into the Gannett Fleming comments and go from there. Now, the one thing that we have to understand now, this is a driveway. It is not a road. So a lot of the comments deal with it being a street. Roger even mentions in here that several of the waivers are not required now because the township is actually considering this as a driveway and not as a private street.
Well, if I could interrupt, if you
Sure.
consider it a driveway, are you allowed to have that many houses on the same driveway?
Yes, there's no requirement as to number of homes. There is a requirement as to number of homes on a street, from what I recall. I believe there was 5 on a street, which is actually one of the comments in here. But on a driveway, I don't believe there's a limitation on number on a driveway. Just like
Kathy,
I'm sorry.
that limitation is for individual lots, and this is all one big lot, so that limitation doesn't apply.
Thank you.
What we have here is we have the structures, and everything else basically is common ground here. So the
Basically a
homeowners-
condominium type.
Yeah, it's basically a condominium townhome type development here. So going to Roger's zoning table, which is on page 2, the first comment's the zoning table, and I think he asked for existing zoning information, which I do notice that we have required and provided. We do have existing on impervious calculations, but we don't have, I don't think, do not have existing on the actual existing conditions regarding the setbacks, so that would have to be added. We will agree to that condition. Number 2, again, I think his zoning comments are more comments than they are saying that there's non-compliance here. As to the impervious coverage, what's occurring is that they're only taking credit for anything that's dirt or sand. They're not taking credit for any porous type pavement. So we're not taking, because the township does not permit credit for porous type pavement, but they are taking credit for in between the porous pavement, maybe grass or dirt, and they are taking credit for that grass or dirt, but not for the actual porous pavement itself. And again, I think this is just a comment here. The engineering third comment refers to the fence or wall not being exceeding 6 feet. In fact, it doesn't exceed 6 feet. It's only, I think it's 2 feet or less. But also, the comment, and Roger notes it in 109A, says except for retaining walls. And this is a retaining wall. What's
Can you
being
point out the
proposed here-
location of that?
Sure.
Just one step back, too. Are you revising your impervious calculations then? Because the ones in front of us say that it's based upon the reduction.
The impervious cover is based on, I'm sorry. Andy Eberwine from Edward B. Walsh and Associates, responsible for the plan. The impervious cover does take the porosity reduction for the sand that's going to be placed between the pavers. The actual pavers themselves, no. So there are areas of pavers that will be installed, but within those areas of pavers, the details and the literature is that 13% of the one is sand, 16% of the other one is sand. We're taking the credits for the zoning for the sand areas of those pavers. Within the stormwater management calculations, they're considered as if it's an impervious surface.
I don't know that we allow for that reduction. I think do we consider the whole
That's-
thing to be
No, that's
impervious?
the method.
Oh,
that-
even
that's the
though
correct
it's all
method.
compacted and
For zoning purposes, that's the method.
for zoning, you do deduct for, so the driveways are all going to be pavers, not a driveway,
There's the wall, right? The whole thing. right?
paved in one solid
This here.
material.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Let's find
So
out
the
where the wall
driveway's
is
gonna-
first, and then, okay.
The driveway's not a solid surface, it's pavers. I just want to confirm
The
that.
driveway for the development or the driveway for the houses?
The driveway for the houses, I believe.
The driveway for the houses will be pavers.
Okay, thank you.
The wall is located here. It's a retaining wall. It's
It-
on sheet 6 of 16.
And it's 2 feet high?
Andy? It hasn't, I know it hasn't been designed, but it's going to be no more than 2 feet, or my understanding is.
It will be no more than 2 feet within a site triangle, which is something that we have to make an adjustment to. The wall itself will not exceed 2.5 feet outside of the site triangle.
Thank you.
What's the difference in elevation there? Because you have a retaining wall, so what's
Mostly 2 feet,
2 feet?
yes.
Okay, going to the saldo requirements. Number 1 is the curbing and sidewalks be provided. I believe the applicant will provide curbing and sidewalks at least along Maplewood, is that correct? Even though, again, it's kind of a sidewalk to nowhere? I believe we show sidewalk here, correct? Yes. Andy, why don't you step up with me, so, just to make certain that I'm saying the right thing here.
We are proposing sidewalk along Maplewood, yes.
And are we proposing curbing as well?
There's existing rolled curb along Maplewood now, so we were tying into that curb.
And then along Highland, you don't own the 2 properties here, so you can't really provide it right away on these 2 properties here that,
Correct.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, the folks in the back are having trouble hearing. If you don't mind sharing the mic a little bit, thank you.
okay.
Is the other little mic working? The one that's attached to the podium?
It wasn't working before.
Yeah, he's going to have to check that after the meeting. He doesn't want to interrupt
Okay.
the whole meeting.
All right, so I guess we'll have to share the handheld then.
All right, number 2, again, remember, it's not a private street, and actually, again, Roger mentions in number 2, in the last phrase there, it does not appear to be applicable since it's not considered a private street. Number 3, on page 3, again, talks about a private street. Number 4 refers to a private street as well. Number 5 refers to the entrance drives, I believe, Roger, being 25 feet. Is that correct? The entrance
That's
and
correct.
exit? Okay, and we can comply with that. I think right now they're 24. Is that right, Andy?
Yes, it's correct.
Number 6, that goes without saying, yes, you know, agreement, obviously, an easement would have to be provided to the township. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is it to be dedicated to the township? Steve, I'll get the easements on there. I wasn't sure.
So previously with DEP, we would have called this a private sewer system. That was yours, and that is the preference of the township. So we would like you to proceed in that way. In your contacts with DEP, if they feel because of the number of units that it's going to have to be a township system, then we'll do the easements in the whole 9 yards.
All right, number 7 is sidewalks and pedestrian paths shall be adequately lighted, which I believe we are providing. Again, that seems to be more of a comment more than anything else, and there is no additional lighting proposed at the intersection of Highland or Maplewood, and they have existing street lights at Highland and Maplewood.
Yes. There's existing streetlights up and down Highland and Maplewood today. We were proposing to leave them as is, and we're providing internal lighting in this development.
Yeah. Excuse me, Madam Chairman, so, Mr. Eberwein, is there actually a street light near the entrance? I mean, so that somebody's coming to approach the development, that they see the road? I mean, I know they're on Maplewood, but can you point to that?
There's a telephone pole that's about 15 feet from the entrance, Steve, and there's a light on it.
And up on Highland?
Same.
Number 8 refers to trees and shade tree. This plan has been approved by Shade Tree, and whatever the requirements are, we will comply as far as the types of trees.
Can we go back to the lights? Are the lights, are they on the plan?
They're not on the plan. I will get them added where the telephone poles are. If you look in the arrow, you might be able to see them on sheet 4, but you're going to strain to look at them. I'll get them transposed on this drawing or on the lighting plan so that you can see them. It's going to be very difficult to see the poles. We'll make sure that they get added to the plan set on the grading plans and the lighting plans so that everybody's clear.
Mr. Cornelia, I'm sorry, Mr. Cornelia, before you move off the trees and the shade tree, so you'll make sure that the plan is compliant with not only the shade tree replacement table, but street trees, that this will all be cleaned up moving forward?
Yes.
Thank you.
So that's a will comply?
Yes.
That's will comply. Number 9 talks about circulation for firefighting. I think sheet 15. Go ahead.
Sheet 15 is truck turning movements for the fire truck to make the moves through the development. I believe the comment is relating to the fact that we should be signing both sides of the drive for no parking. And if you look on sheet 1 of the plan set, it is signed on both sides for no parking. There will be no parking on this 24-foot wide driveway.
So that's also a will comply.
That's correct.
Yeah, we will comply with number 9. Yeah, there is no, the plans do not show any street parking, and we're not intending any street parking. There are, required by the code, there are 3 spots. As you can see, they're not on the street themselves, they're off the street. 3 additional spots. Each home has 2, and then code requires, because this is a townhome type development, I think it's 1 per every 4, and so we're providing 3. As required by code.
This is a private?
Can I just ask one question? What's the ramifications between a driveway versus a private road within the township?
Ask about this then.
Well, basically, it talks about the requirements regarding width, regarding probably width and radii and things of that nature are the main ones, but I'll refer to Roger on that. He may be more familiar with the code requirements on streets.
Yeah, that's, it's the method of construction of the road, but also the type of subdivision that's being done, whether they're fee simple lots, or if it's, in this case, a single common lot, which this is permissible to be a driveway.
What about the lot that's being left on this driveway that's not part of the development and was on a private road before? How does that impact them?
The deeds clearly indicate that lot, along with a couple of the other existing lots before they were all combined, have the rights of egress to that lot, utilizing this, and they still will maintain that. That's the section that you see coming off of Highland on the plan, addresses that.
But that makes it then like there's 3, 4 properties total that it can access it? Is that right?
Well, the ordinance allows up to 3 lots to access it. If, I think there was an action to quiet title at some point on this property, which quelled everybody's rights to be able to use the interior street unless otherwise provided. So, Mr. Cornelio, I'll ask you, how many lots are actually taking access, are actually taking access off the driveway?
I assume it would be, although I believe both the Londrello and Brown lots do have access on Highland as well. I'm not even certain if they have access, but we're providing them, they will have access on the private driveway as well, right? And this lot is weird because it's landlocked. The one, I guess it's, if you can see the one I'm pointing to here. At one point, it was part of one of these other lots, and at some point, it was created as a landlocked lot. I don't know how it was done or even if it was ever approved, but there is a deed for it.
It might be prudent to grant an additional waiver to go from 3 lots to 4 lots, because depending on how you construe which lots are taking access at the time of this subdivision, it could be up to 4. And right now, your subdivision and land development ordinance only allows 3.
If the board determines that, I mean, we would obviously have no problem with that and would request it. Again, I'm not certain if it's necessary, but if the board determines it, we would have no objection to it. I was going down to number 10, where it says all driveways shall be paved and constructed, and I believe they are paved and constructed in accordance with township standards. And in fact, the township standards in the zoning code says durable, dust-proof, all-weather surfaces, which is what is being proposed here.
So that's going to be the pavers and the sand?
Right?
Okay. While we're on driveways, I have some questions on some of these. Do you want to do that now?
Sure.
Okay. On house 8, building 8, it shows a 15-foot on one side.
Yes.
I thought it was supposed to be 20.
Well, the spaces have to be 20 feet deep, but we're counting the garage there and not the driveways. So the premise here is that you can still get access to the garage. They won't be allowed to park there because they don't have the 20-foot width. They can't put a car there.
But I'm concerned that they might put a car there and hang onto the sidewalk. It looks like there's it looks like 29 feet on the other side.
Yes, but they wouldn't be permitted by the bylaws within the association to do that as well. So the enforcement of that would be internal by the homeowners association.
And then another one, Lot 3, where you have the driveway cut off.
Yes.
I was wondering if that could be straightened out there, so that you'd have more of a triangle coming together there. So you would have,
We could do that.
okay. And there was one other one where it was short. Yeah, that is narrow. Pardon me? Well, they're up against the property line there, I think.
But they're going to be 18 feet to the front of the house, but it's the upper level will be cantilevered over the garage, and they'll have 20 feet to the garage on those units.
I'm a button here. So that they're going to be cantilevered, right? So you're picking up,
There'll be 2-foot cantilever above on the second level on
Just
those 2
9 and 10?
units. Yes, just those 2 units.
Why can't you move the driveway over? I'm sorry, why can't you move the driveway over where it entrances Maplewood?
I'm not following what you're asking, but okay. Which one, what lot?
Well, lots 9 and 10. can't the driveway, the entrance driveway, be shifted over to the left? So you have more of a proper front yard and.
The reason I don't want to do that is because these are existing driveways today, and people are aware of where they are. I think moving that up on the hill is going to change our sight distances out there. These driveways are used for the commercial enterprises that take place in there today. We didn't relocate this driveway. It's in the exact same position that it was for, as long as the D'Antonis were back there running their business. So I guess the long and the short of it is we probably could. I just want to leave the driveway as you come in and approach off of Maplewood and not slide it up the hill.
Would that require another retaining wall?
It might, but it's also the stormwater management area. There's other uses taking place in that particular location.
I don't know, that's your special.
All right, so you'll at least have one car in front of the garage. So,
They can have one car in
One
front
car
of each
parked.
garage, and one car parked in front of each garage. They can.
They're not required because actually 2 parking spaces are, according to code, provided in the
yeah,
structure
but
itself.
realistically speaking,
If
we
they
know what
wanted an
happens.
additional parking spot, they could have it.
Yeah, okay.
That's why we did it. Is at the last meeting, I think it was a concern.
We did
And
bring it up,
we
yes.
made some adjustments to them to accommodate that concern from the
Right.
last meeting.
Okay, thank you.
11, again, I think that's a comment, we will comply with whatever the buffer screens are required. Um, 12 is a will comply, that's the park and rec fee on page 4. And 13, I think, again, that's a comment, and it has to be reviewed by the fire marshal, I believe, and the township engineer, which I assume hasn't been done yet, so we'll comply with that.
So the ones that you are having trouble complying with, or you feel don't pertain to you, are 3 and 4, I guess, and 2, 3, and 4?
Yeah, 2, 3, and 4, well, yes, 2 is, again, private street, 3 refers to a private street, 4 refers to a private street.
Okay.
I don't think he's saying he has difficulty complying with them. I think what he's saying is that he doesn't need to because it's a driveway.
Yep.
There are a couple of additional waivers that they need, though, because it is a driveway and not a private street. And those are found in Section 29A, specifically 2, 3, and 15, which, because they're going to be using the garages as parking spaces, people will have to back out of them. If somebody parks behind the garage, they'll have to move a car to get out of it. And we need waivers from those requirements because they are counting the garages as parking spaces.
Could you give me those numbers again, please?
Sure. 29-2,
A2.
A2, excuse me, 29A3, and 29A15.
Any questions or comments from the board on
Again,
this section
I don't know
so
if we
far?
need waivers on those, but again, if the board deems that we do, we'll request waivers from them. Just looking at how it's worded. Because again, we're not, the parking spaces in the drive, are not required under code, but, you know, they can be used, obviously, because we're not providing any parking in the driveway.
I guess just, it's better to be safe than
Sure,
sorry,
I'm
and
not- yeah,
the sections don't reference required parking spaces, they reference parking spaces, period. So, and even the garage spaces, you're gonna have to back up to get out of them in most cases. Most people don't back into their garage.
Are there any questions or comments from the board on this section we've covered so far?
Well, based on what council just informed us, I would think that whatever we consider doing with this we include that, or we stipulate, or recommend, I should say, that the applicant seek waivers for, forgive me if I don't get the citations correct, but get waivers for our code requirements 29A, 2, 3, and 15?
Yeah. Okay, comments from anybody else at this point? All right,
Can,
Yep, I have one
Yeah.
comment.
okay.
On the shade tree piece, Roger's letter says, and Roger's here to ask, I guess, an explanation must be provided regarding the trees. So what is the explanation, I guess?
They indicated earlier they would comply. There is some
I believe there's some
Con-
trees that
con-
weren't on the list. or
yeah, there was some
something. Yeah.
confusion about the trees that were on the list, and separate tables had different numbers of trees, and I was just asking for an explanation as to which was going to apply, and we typically in this in review defer to the findings of the Shade Tree Commission. So they just need to rectify all the numbers and the names of the trees and all that.
It's a clarification to the charts as they appear in the landscape plan. I had my landscape architect address, Roger had some comments last time regarding additional street trees, shade trees, and making sure we did all the buffering. They did that, but when he did his charts, and I would agree with Roger, are difficult to follow. So I'm going to have him provide clarification on the chart so that the numbers all make sense when, as they appear. We are complying with the ordinance, it's just that it's not depicted as cleanly and easily as it should be.
All right, thank you.
I have a quick comment. On your preliminary erosion and sediment control plan, you might want to check the elevations of the driveway in front of number 9. Looks like there might be a typo. Looks like there's an increase in 10 feet in height or something when it shouldn't be.
No, it's probably a typo on the plan. I'll make the correction. There's not a 10-foot differential there.
Right.
Okay, stormwater?
Kathy, if you wish, I would recommend that we can kind of breeze over this a little bit. We have 2 more shots at the stormwater with this,
Okay.
and a lot of these are housekeeping comments and things that myself and the engineer can work out before. It's not actually a requirement of preliminary
Yeah.
approval, so
Well,
this will be back before you
Okay.
with a more comprehensive design.
I did have a question on this when I was looking at the elevations of your drainage ditches or retention, whatever you're calling them. Let me just get back to that. They
Remember,
seem to be,
currently, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kathy.
they seem to be higher than some of the properties. Looking at the elevation, like the one in the front is roughly 462, and the houses close to them are 456, or some of these elevation points are 456. And I was looking for how deep they are to see if they can go in deeper, but the water flow, that is. And then also the other one at the top is 461, and the houses nearby are 462. Well, it's a foot difference, but no, a great deal.
The tops of those facilities, the earth on top of them are at that elevation is what you're seeing. The bed itself is deeper than that.
How deep is the bed?
Well, you have to look on the detail sheet,
Roughly, I don't need to know
3
exactly.
to 4 feet.
Okay.
And the ones in the front of the project are 4 to 5 feet deep.
Okay. And I assume the pipe would go in lower, so it would pick up.
The pipe's at the bottom of that, and we have it set as low as we can to make it have positive drainage and make it function.
Okay, thank you. All right, if it's all right with the board, then we'll let staff handle the stormwater. Does our water experts have any questions on that?
Yeah, remember, there's no stormwater management on the site now.
I know.
We'll have to, totally comply with, I believe it's being treated like meadow.
Okay, so the last part is sanitary sewer, and I guess the only question is the minimum 5 feet away from the proposed sanitary sewer.
We did that. We made that correction, and it will all be the minimum 5 feet deep, and I will make sure that I add Radnor's details onto the drawing. I'll get them from your engineer.
All right, thank you. Okay, Steve, your letter.
Oh,
Do you have any additional,
I didn't see Steve's letter.
dated February 16th?
The Gilmore letter?
There's a Gilmore letter.
Or, I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, so Amy Kaminsky's not here. I know
Steve.
you're used to seeing her from Gilmore. This is Joe Carlin. He is our traffic engineer also tonight from
Okay.
Gilmore, and he can step you through that, or along with the subdivision.
Did you have any specific comments?
We did have specific comments. I'm not sure if
But
we're
you don't
looking.
necessarily need to read it all. Like
Gotcha,
if there's one that
understood.
sticks out in your mind or
I'll
something.
cross it.
I can go through them if, I mean,
Okay.
most of them are regarding the
Why don't we
streets
do
again.
that then? Okay.
Yeah, most of them, I think, require, are comments regarding the street, you know, as opposed to a private drive. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Um, 5. I believe 6 we will comply.
That is correct.
7, we will comply at least as to Maplewood, I believe, right? But Highland, we can't because, again, we don't own the 2 properties on Highland Avenue. All right, go ahead, go ahead.
There's a spot grade shown in the wall within the site triangle on the drawing that is at 2.5 feet at this current time. That will be revised so that it complies with the maximum of 2 foot that's permitted within that site triangle. I had said that earlier, but that's what that comment refers to. We'll take care of that.
So that's a will comply?
Yes.
That's will comply. Number 8 refers to streets. Number 9 will, I think that's on sheet 4, but we will comply with it.
If we could go to 8, I don't think we don't have an issue with the waiver on that, as long as you show like truck movements in both directions. Like right now, you have the fire truck going through one way. You
Okay.
can make sure exit again and entering vehicles can handle the 15 feet, at least on our side, we're okay.
So we'll comply with that, number 8? Yep.
Mr. Eberwein, also, and I know we probably discussed this at one of our previous meetings, just to make sure that you use the Radnor Fire Company's templates, as opposed, and Joe knows that, as opposed to a standard truck, what we actually have on the road. Thank you.
Number 9, I believe it's on sheet 4, but we will comply, correct? Andy, if you want to talk about that.
We provide the site distances on the aerial that's in the site plan, on the plan set. I think it was just missed because it's not on the other sheets. I'll get it turned on the other sheets. But if you look in the aerial photo, they're on there.
Number 10, Andy, while you have the mic, refers to the ADA.
There's some tweaking that has to be done on the ramping system, and I will sit down actually with your engineers to figure out exactly what they want me to do and how we want to fix the tweaks to make them. Some of the landings have to be 4 feet. I have to label such things. We will comply. We have to comply. It's ADA rules and requirements. We're not asking not to. It's just there's some tweaks that have to happen on the ramping system to make it fully compliant.
So you will tweak?
Yes.
Okay.
Number 11, I believe that's on sheet 15. If you just want to address that, I think we may have already, but.
I think that relates to the comment we already spoke about, where you want me to make sure that I have the Radnor truck on there and that we do it both directions at the radiuses.
Yes.
Okay. We'll comply.
And number 12, we will comply as well.
Before you get off 11, real quick, what about trash collection in this development or condo? How's that going to work?
Private handled by each individual homeowner or by the association. The association will be in charge then, so it'll be private through the association and contracted through the association for the homeowners within the development.
Will the homeowners put trash cans out from each individual property, or is there one place where they dump it
No,
into a
the plan is to
dumpster?
put it out from each property.
So it'll come by like a normal trash collection
Yes.
and pick it up?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we at 12? I believe that's a will comply if we haven't hit it yet. Correct, Andy?
Yep.
Yes.
And then I think there's some general comments. On 1 and 2?
Yes.
And 3, that's regarding the concrete pavers and,
The pavers that are proposed are ADA compliant. A brick paver in amongst itself, a generic brick paver is not, but the ones that we're proposing are ADA compliant. I'll provide you with the manufacturer's documentation that says that.
I believe 3B, that's a will comply?
Yes.
That's the last one.
Now, I believe at the last meeting, we requested that the applicant meet with the neighbors to settle any questions and take care of their concerns. Was that done?
I don't know. No, I
No?
believe not. I know I spoke to one of the neighbors, but, I didn't resolve anything with him. He just told me what his concerns were.
Okay.
Mrs. Bogosian, there are a few of the neighbors here
Yes.
tonight.
Yep, I will listen. Yep. Okay, are there any questions or comments from the board at this point? No? Nobody down here? All right, why don't we hear from some of the neighbors? If you could, please come up. We're going to have to use the handheld mic rather than the little mic on the podium. Please identify yourself and tell us your concerns or comments. It should be on, I think.
Hi, is it working? I'm Leslie Clifton. I live across the street from the driveway at 414 Maplewood Avenue. If somebody could just walk me through this, because I'm not an architect or engineer, and I would like to kind of see what's on this plan. Where is the open space? Where are the drainage spots to collect stormwater runoff?
There are low points established in the, where I'm pointing in basically the middle. Can you guys hear me? I'll try to speak louder, but I
Well,
guess
the problem
we're
is
not-
we have TV. Yeah.
When it's recorded
sorry.
and when the TV.
I
yeah,
thought if I
needs a
talked
mic.
loud, it would be fine.
That's for in
My
this
fault.
room, but not for TV.
Okay.
You're not that
I didn't
loud.
realize I was on
Yeah.
TV. I would have dressed better. There's several inlets being placed there. Inlets 3 and Inlet 4 are placed in a low point internal in the development. The stormwater from that will then go into a underground pipe system that'll be installed out along Maplewood Avenue and discharges down toward the covered bridge or the overpass. The two facilities in the back behind lot or house number 6 and between 2 and 3, they're underground infiltration facilities. They don't have a discharge. They have an emergency discharge, but they will not have a discharge. So there's also inlets being placed at the lower end to pick up the excess water that might be missed by the low points so it doesn't go out onto Maplewood. The stormwater traveling out to Highland has been reviewed. It's actually reduced. We reduced the flow to Highland from this property by this plan so that there's less water going to get to Highland than it gets there today.
Will there be less water getting to Maplewood as
Yes,
well?
yes.
Because right now
Okay,
it's like
Mike,
a
please.
river.
Ma'am.
Right now, it's like a river when it rains hard, and there's no storm sewers at that point anywhere along the road. So water goes across the street into my driveway, where there is a storm sewer.
You're up here.
I'm directly across from the driveway. So when water comes out, it flows down Maplewood Avenue and causes severe erosion. The road surface is cracked on that side of, on my side of the road, and the bottom of my property is eroding and sinking down because of the heavy flow of water, along with the fact that trucks have to drive onto my front yard in order to pull into your driveway there.
Oh, it's not my driveway, it's a development's driveway.
That driveway.
The trucks will, the only trucks that'll be going in here, well, I guess, will be a delivery truck, a UPS truck or anything like that once this is developed. There'll be no more construction vehicles going in and out except for when construction happens. During construction, I'm sure the township's going to make us take pictures and/or video the condition of the roadway, and if something happens to that roadway during construction, then my client or the contractor will have to repair that back to the state that it was before. With regard to stormwater, we're reducing the stormwater from this property. We're reducing it 2 to 1. In fact, we're reducing substantially most of the storms that'll be leaving this property. There's no stormwater at all on this property right now. So we're taking a site that has substantial impervious coverages, reducing the impervious coverages, and adding stormwater to it. So I believe we're making it a much better situation and reducing the flows to compliance with the township's ordinances.
Okay, so we just briefly talked about access through this driveway, and I'm concerned because it's already difficult to see cars coming out of that driveway. I've almost been hit several times driving up Maplewood Avenue because there is no visibility when you're coming down that driveway, poor visibility looking down Maplewood Avenue towards Conestoga, and I've nearly been hit several times. So I'm coming up Maplewood this way and nearly been hit by people coming out. Pulling in, large trucks, and I've never seen a fire truck pull in there, but large trucks have to pull very wide. It's a very steep grade, and they almost always bottom out. You can see the whole surface of that is completely scarred from trucks bottoming out on that grade. So I don't know what that grade is, but it seems that if it's going to have trash trucks and other large vehicles going up there, that's going to continue to be a problem. And I'm proposing that that driveway be moved somewhere so it's not opposite mine. What happens now is people pull onto my yard. If there's cars parked at the base of my yard on the street where they're allowed to park, then you definitely cannot turn into that driveway. If there was a fire truck that had to access through that entrance, they would not be able to pull in or come out because of the parking on that side of the street. There's bound to be also an issue of parking with only basically one full-size space inside a garage and one visitor parking space and only 2 spare parking spaces in that development. Where will visitors park? On Maplewood Avenue, where it's already extremely narrow and congested and makes it so you have to weave in and out. There's school buses, tons of them, because Maplewood Avenue is one of the main access routes to the elementary school. So it's already a traffic nightmare with just the few cars parked there. And having to pull in and out of that driveway, I already see what happens. People pull into my driveway, and then they back across the street to go up the driveway on the other side.
That's a comment. I don't know how to reply to that.
Right. Is the visibility being improved to turn in there and coming out?
The visibility to the, if you're coming out of the driveway turning left or looking left, is the bridge for the walking trail. We're not relocating the bridge from the walking trail, and that will stay. The visibility as you look to the right up the hill will be improved because we're cutting back the embankment that's there currently, and it'll be a more gradual slope going up there so that you will be able to see more as you're coming, of the people coming down Maplewood approaching that driveway and approaching your driveway.
Do you happen to know the width of the current driveway that is there?
It's 24 feet.
The one that's currently there now? Okay.
24 feet.
And you're basically staying at that, aren't you?
Yes.
Right.
And I just wanted to add something. My recollection from looking at your plan is that you're demolishing 2 structures on either side of the driveway right now, so that might improve sight lines.
It will, and there's also a wall on the low side that's going to be removed. It's all going to be redone and reshaped and sloped up into the development, so it looks it's going to look a lot different than it does today because you won't have the wall, you won't have the houses on either side, and the slopes will be a little more gradual than what they are today.
Is there any way of making the entrance into that a little wider so you don't have to pull to the left to turn to the right?
Well, our turning template shows that it uses the existing cartway of Maplewood to turn in, and it doesn't exceed that. Is the parking on that street, is it what, they're parking on both sides of Maplewood?
No, there's parking on one side of Maplewood. But
What?
there is parking allowed.
Oh,
on both
Mike,
sides.
please. We need to pass the mic back and forth. Sorry.
There's parking on my side of Maplewood, and there is parking permitted on the other side, and sometimes there's parking on both sides. There is
Okay.
no restriction for parking on either side currently.
We can make it wider.
Mike, please.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
We can make it wider to accommodate it so the truck doesn't have to come over there. We have, the full cartway is available for use. I didn't realize that that it was parked on and not used the cartway with. Is that typically the case? I'm asking a question, so I know
I
when I
don't
go
have
back
the
to the design.
answer, but perhaps the staff does. But at this point, it appears
We'll
that
get
you
with staff and
have
we'll
the
make it work.
ability
We
to
can.
make that entrance a little wider.
Yes.
So it's easier to get into, and then that might alleviate some of the problems.
We can.
Okay. Any other comments, Leslie?
Yes, I was curious as to the kind of lighting and the brightness of the lighting that's going to be on that site.
Have you gotten to that point yet?
There's a plan.
Sorry.
There is a lighting plan prepared. We're not lighting it like daylight. Let me get to the plan and show you. It's an ornamental fixture with a globe top, kind of like you see in a downtown, more than like street light. It's not a pole-mounted street light. It's a stand-alone street light with the light on the top, and they're LED fixtures, and they're designed to go down and not have spill-off out onto the road. We have no spill-off outside of our property limits. We're not permitted to do that, and we don't.
And I would assume the lumens of those lights would be less than the lumens that are currently lighting Highland and Maplewood?
I would say I assume that. I don't know, because I don't know what the light is that's on those Maplewood and Highland streets, but most street lights are pretty bright. I don't know. Do you know what it is, Steve? Do you know guys what you have?
I don't know off the top of my head what's on the Cobra heads there.
We're talking about an 80-watt bulb,
Okay.
an LED bulb. It's not bright. It's there to light internally for safety of the people that live in there and not to make it glow. We don't want to make it glow. It's just not, wouldn't be good for the residents. It wouldn't be good for you guys either.
Sorry.
Finally, it's okay. Where will overflow parking occur when visitors come to this development? I see 2 spaces other than people's driveways.
There's 3 spaces here, and then as we talked about, there's 2 spaces in the structure itself, in the garage, and then people would also park in the driveway. Most of them have approximately, could fit 2 more cars in the driveway as well.
Is there parking along this road?
No, there's no parking along the driveway at all.
And where will snow be disposed of when they plow? On the property, is there a place for it?
The question is, where would snow be disposed
I don't
of?
know.
Probably the same way it's disposed of as on
Everywhere
Maplewood.
else,
It's
yeah.
pushed to the side. You generally end up with a little narrower road on there.
Yeah, remember, you can't put it on
the
a
way it
neighbor's
is.
property.
Yeah.
Which
And,
has
Yeah.
been done.
yep, talk to that man over there.
Since this is a driveway, Radnor Township will not be plowing
Right.
it, so
Yeah.
this would be private, and that's something I think, as we talked about with the HOA and the trash, they can't come and push it over on this resident's property at the end of the run, nor the same on Highland, so they're going to have to make, it does go to the side, as Mrs. Bogosian said, but there is something in front of the plow. They're going to have to address that. They can't just
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Great, thank you. Next person, please.
With respect to the stormwater system, is it possible to put some inlets closer to the curb before the sidewalks? Because all that water that's coming from, once you hit those inlets, everything else is going to go to the road.
The inlets that are in the driveway will pick up everything up above that. From there down, that will go onto the road, but that's still substantially less than what gets there today.
You couldn't put ones further down and tie them in
The elevations won't allow that to happen.
to tie into the right?
The elevations won't allow it. We can't, the road's too low. The existing road.
What is
Maplewood.
this discharge pipe that's coming across your driveway and then out towards the train?
It will be a 4-inch PVC pipe that discharges the stormwater over a length of time.
That's not meant to be used, that's an overflow, or what is that?
It's the discharge from the pipe storage. The underground pipes are a detention facility in that location, not an infiltration facility.
So you can't get a pipe to go from those driveway, that driveway entrance over to your system?
No,
What,
it's not deep enough.
Elevations change.
You're going up, you're into that driveway at 6% grade.
Regina,
By the time you get up to those pipes, you're above by 2 feet, 3 feet from where you are at the lower level.
It's not deep enough to do that, and we had concern that there would be short cycling of the basin if they did that, where it would come back out of that inlet. So, I mean, the design is
so the
provided
bottom of
now.
that basin is higher than the
The
intersection?
bottom is not, but the top is, and when you use the entire volume available in the basin, you would have short cycling, and it would come back out of that inlet.
Because I guess she's still going to be seeing that water coming towards her driveway then. This is not going to stop that.
It'll be less.
Less impervious
Yeah.
from the existing site.
I mean, it's graded towards the street, which goes across the street into her driveway. Fairly steep, so, I mean, I would, from looking at this, I would predict that there's going to be water in her driveway coming from there.
With the design that we have, we're actually controlling the 2 through the 100-year storms and reducing the 2 to a post-development condition to a 1. I'm not trying to get really technical with you, but we're reducing the stormwater from this site phenomenally below what leaves there today. What goes down, there will still be some water coming down the driveway. I cannot say there isn't, from the inlet down. Those inlets will pick up everything internally. So today, there's nothing there. Everything from the top of the site comes barreling down to Maplewood. That's not going to happen after this is built because we'll be picking it up internally. And we're creating low points up top to catch the water to keep it from going down the hill. And then we catch it at those 2 inlets as close as we could get them to the lower part. And that little bit of 30 foot of roadway isn't going to generate anywhere near the volume of water that is generated there today.
Okay, we had somebody from the audience. Come on up.
Thank you.
Oh, handheld.
Thank you. My name's Louis Landrillo, and I own the property at 257 Highland Avenue, which is right here on the plan. And I have a question. I think it's your solicitor. I was at January meeting, and I brought up that we all use the private road that goes through the properties. And she mentioned something about a waiver or something that they signed that we weren't aware of and took possession of the road. Is that what you said, ma'am?
No, what our research showed was that there was an action to quiet title from a private road that had been shown on an older plan, that the applicant filed an action in quiet title to eliminate that private street, and that a court order was issued to eliminate that street. The judge wouldn't have allowed the court order to be issued unless notice was given to everyone who could have been affected. So whether it was you or the neighbor or the property owner before you, at some point notice was given.
When was that done?
I have that date.
Roughly.
Yeah, actually, it was August 22nd, 2016, the court approved the order.
So it was a year ago.
A year and a
basically.
half, yeah.
We did not get any notice.
He still has access.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Oh, just
Go
wait.
ahead.
No, that's okay. Thanks, sorry. We did not get any notice for that. And I think it was very important that we should have gotten notice. So that's the reason why I wanted to ask you. I didn't want to leave here tonight without knowing. So,
This is one of those things that if you feel that you didn't get notice and you should have gotten notice, the Planning Commission's job is to review the plans and determine if there's compliance with their ordinances. If you feel, we can only look at the court docket, and we could see that the action to quiet title order was entered. If you feel that it was entered improperly, then that's probably something you have to take up with your own attorney.
I understand. That's why I was asking. Thank you.
Okay.
We also myself and the other owner of the property across the street from me, we didn't get notice for this hearing, but some of the other neighbors got notice, and they let us know, so everybody knows.
Are you referring to the one tonight?
Yes, ma'am.
Normally, when we continue it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, somebody from staff, notice is not always sent out again because it's announced at the meeting that,
They were, we, for some reason, we didn't get them. So
Okay.
I just want everybody to know that. Okay, so we'll move on. So we're going to look into that and see where we go with that.
I'm sorry, so notices were sent out for this meeting. We'll double check as to see those addresses. But did
Okay.
you get, did you get notice for the first meeting?
I did get notice for the first meeting,
So
but not for this meeting.
It's the same, we use the same exact address list, so I don't know why you
Yeah,
wouldn't.
but what you're talking about is the quiet title action notice. Is that what you're referring to?
No,
No, he's
I
talking about the
noticed in this
township
meeting.
notification.
We definitely didn't get any notice for that, sir. Okay,
So I'm just wondering, what is the process? Who mails out the notification? Is it the township or is it the developer?
The township provides a list of addresses and a sample letter to the developer. The developer actually goes to the post office and sends them out. And there's a whole process they go through at the post office, and then they bring back a paper that says that they were actually
So
mailed.
they do the
to-
registered list at the post
Correct.
office showing that they sent them to all
It's an onerous
those-
process, yes, correct.
Okay, all right, so it's not the township who's sending it out? Okay, thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
thank you. There's going to be a wall built on my property if this goes through, and it looks like to me that the elevation difference from the road to where my property goes up on a little slope, and they're going to dig back in. It looks like it's about 4 feet high. So I don't know if they're going to be able to get away with a 2 feet wall there. I think maybe it needs to be a little higher. And I also probably would like to know what material they're using for that wall. So that's important to know what they're going to be doing there, you know. Also, it's going to affect my driveway now. If they widen this road, my driveway is going to get a little shorter. So I'm hoping that I have enough room to park 2 cars in my driveway. And they did say, Nick, is the driveway on the homes, are they 2 cars wide, or is it single driveway? Is 2 wide? Okay, so they can get 2 in the driveway. The sidewalk on Maplewood Avenue, they're going to install a sidewalk on Maplewood Avenue, and there's already a sidewalk on Highland Avenue that goes down onto Maplewood Avenue, and I'm wondering if they're going to connect or if they're just going to stop at their property. That might be a question.
I believe they're stopping at their property, which
Stop at
is
property.
what is normal,
Okay, so there's 2 houses there that won't have sidewalks in front of them.
unless
then.
they put them in, yes.
Okay.
Unless the people who own those houses put them in.
Okay, well, that's pretty much really what I wanted to know, how they acquired the road without me getting notice, and that's what I need to know.
That I can't answer for you.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay. Can the applicant tell us have you decided what the wall material is going to be yet?
The detail on the drawing, the typical detail is for a keystone retaining wall. That's the cinder block split face front retaining wall with a cap on the top. So there'll be 2 levels of bricks, or not bricks, but split face. That's what they call it. I guess it's a concrete brick.
Does it look like cinder block or does it look like brick?
It will look like a keystone wall. I don't know that David has made that decision yet. I have it as shown as a typical keystone, so it will look more like a face of a building as opposed to.
Okay, so it wouldn't look like a raw cinder block. It would
No,
be
yeah,
something
no, it'll be
attractive.
finished. It'll be finished.
Okay.
Yes.
Just the only comment I wanted to make is we're not denying anyone access to this driveway. Lily will still have access, as will the Ashleys, the Browns, who live across the way from the driveway as well.
Nick, that property in the back that is owned by Falcone, there, that triangular shaped
Yeah,
lot?
that's owned by, and I'll look in the back. It's half and half. I think half is Falcone's and half are the Ashleys, actually, yeah.
And
The Ashleys, I think, used to own one of these properties here, maybe still do. The one next to you? Yeah. So I think that's what happened. It was part of that, and somehow it was, I have no idea how it was blocked off or how it occurred. As I said, there is a deed for that piece there.
But when you look at the original configuration, that lot makes sense. It's on the private drive. It had access on the private drive. So you could put a house on there and have a driveway onto that private drive.
Yeah.
So as was talked about earlier, I don't see how we can move forward without creating that variance or waiver, whatever it takes, to not make this no longer a buildable lot. Because if it goes to 4 properties attached to let me get it right, driveway, we have to create a situation where that can, you can't take away the right to develop that lot because you're approving this plan. I think that has to be avoided.
However, yeah, I agree with you on that, but it doesn't necessarily mean they should be allowed to put 4 houses on it.
I'm just saying that we
It
can't
probably could be.
we can't approve the plan and prevent people from developing their land as a result of it. That's what
And
I'm
we
saying.
have no issue with providing them
So we just have,
access.
so we have to be
Okay.
mindful.
So we need to have that in the plan somewhere and the paperwork.
Wouldn't logically the developer of that landlocked lot seek a waiver?
Yeah, well, isn't that what they said? You seek a waiver from 3 to 4
Yeah, I
lots,
think-
so you just have to seek a
In other
waiver.
words,
I don't think we
have
should
to
put the
do it-
onus on the landowner of that lot. I think it should be taken care of
No, no.
as this
Well,
I
Development.
think
development.
staff's
On
suggestion
the
would,
driveway, they want to suggest, they make the suggestion that they request a waiver from 3 to 4 lots. and that's
Right,
good.
I'm saying it had to be part of this plan.
Yeah.
That's what we're
Yes,
saying too.
yes, yes. It's on
And they
us.
already said that they wouldn't have a hard time with that.
Okay, anybody else from the audience?
Yeah, I already have egress to my property here. But originally, we came in, we had egress and ingress from Maplewood. We used that to get in, and we also used Highland Avenue. So what they want to make this private. We do park cars along the side of this road here now from overflow from our properties. If they do make that private there, we will not be able to park cars there anymore. And I guess we'll be at their mercy. We'll have to do what they tell us to do.
I think you need to speak with them and work something out. And
We tried.
yeah, okay.
We tried.
Is this something you want us to hear, Nick?
No, I was saying we're not going to deny them the ability to
Okay.
use the driveway both ways, yeah.
All right.
Correct. He said yes.
It's open to the public, why not?
Lou, you'll come and hunt me down if you don't have it. I know.
All right, anybody else in the audience? Yes, come up, please.
Yes, my name's Betty Phillips, and our property is at 255 Highland Avenue. My parents and my sister is living there right now, and I guess I have the same issues as well as Louis does, Mr. Landrello. Am I on? Can you hear me?
Yes, you
Okay.
are.
I
Just
feel
hold
like
it
I
close
feel like
to your
this is really
face.
loud. Okay,
That
sorry
rather-
about that. I'm not used to using the mic. But anyway, I feel like we had the same issues as far as we were never notified. When I saw this, that it was on here just tonight, the waiver, okay, where Central Avenue is no longer considered a private road due to a waiver. Am I to understand that's no longer a private road now? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And according to all the deeds I've seen, it is a private road. All the deeds, for the properties from before, from
This is
back
what
in
we're told.
2016.
I can't argue it one
Right.
way or the other.
Okay, but what I'm saying is we weren't notified either. I wasn't, my sister lives there now. She never got a notice that it was no longer a private road. We're at 255 right across from, I'm sorry, you can show me where is the Central Avenue? Where am I? Right here? Oh, yeah, Central Avenue. I'm right here. Yeah, that's what I thought, because Louis is here. I'm right here, across from Louis, right on Central Avenue, okay? And we've been using that road all the time. We use that as an entrance to because we come in there and our driveway is off of that road, off of Central Avenue. That's our access to Highland Avenue. okay? And we do use that as a parking because we know, and it has been a private road in the past, and we did not know it wasn't. We got no notice about it. So I just feel like, and then since they're planning on putting a sidewalk along our property, you know, I don't know, they were there measuring, and that came as a result of the last meeting in January. Sorry, I have a scratchy throat. It came as a result of the last meeting. After that, a few days later, somebody was there measuring our property, but they didn't notify us, and they didn't tell us the result of that. I feel
Was
like
the
we're not
property
beginning-
marked up?
No, we were surveying our property, so
Your property, okay, sorry.
we were surveying the property along the strip of land between and adjacent to your property, so we could establish where your property is,
Okay.
where your sidewalk is, and your driveway. That's going to stay. We're not,
You're not cutting into our property?
no, ma'am, we're not permitted to do that.
Okay, so you're going to be all in the street then? Where are you going to put the sidewalks? That's what I don't quite understand.
Sidewalk will be between where we're putting new curb, and then there'll be sidewalk running right along that, and then there's a grass strip behind the sidewalk to your property line.
I'm trying
This
to-
is your property line right here.
Right, correct.
This is the curb. Right in here, there's a sidewalk, which will be 4 foot along the edge of the curb, and then there's a grass strip that is like 3 or 4 feet behind that before you get to your property.
I think the comment that I'm getting here is,
I'm seeing the street. I know what the street's like. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
what you see is not necessarily what the property line was. So you may have been mowing their grass for years.
Exactly, yes. And that's
And-
what I don't see, and nobody's explained that. That's what I'm saying.
So,
the courtesy of like
To
somebody
explain
coming
it,
and telling us.
then, Ed, maybe it would be a good idea
I'm
to
a
say,
visual person, so
how many
yeah.
feet of grass are going to change into a sidewalk, grass strip? How much of that is what she's been cutting?
Yes, I will.
Is the apparent
Thank you.
move 6 feet, 8 feet?
There'll be 4 foot less than what you're cutting now. We're widening the road out, I think, maybe a foot more than what's
So the
there.
okay.
And then there'll be a sidewalk 4 foot wide. So the grass strip that you would mow, you mow now to the edge of the existing drive, is about 6 to 7 feet wide. Your property line is not the curb.
Okay,
Your
that's-
property line is 7 feet away from the curb, internal to where your house would sit. So that property is along this strip of land here. You have been maintaining it, and within that property, within that area, outside of your property, there'll be a sidewalk and a grass strip provided. But that grass strip will no longer have to be maintained by you. That'll be maintained by the homeowners association internally. Your driveway will still be there. You'll still have all rights of ingress and egress. We're not taking that from you. And you won't have to maintain that strip at all anymore.
And the other nice thing is you won't have to have somebody shovel the snow either. No, they'll have to do that.
Yeah, that I don't understand. I'll look into it, and like Mr. Landrella said, you know, the thing about the private road, we never got a notice about that. Very, what's I say, eye-opening, because it's been a private road for a long time, and the township has not been taking care of it. We've been doing it, or D'Antonio was doing it before us, for us at one time. But, okay. Well, you know what, I'm just going to stop right there and look into it. Okay, thank you.
Next person, please.
Hi, Baron Gemmer, because I know Nick will probably ask. My personal residence is approximately 1,900 feet from this property, and my rental property is 1,250 feet. I have 3 comments, hopefully be very brief. The first one, just like a lot of the comments we saw in the review letter, I was confused as to what was a driveway or what was a street, so I really didn't get a chance to review the plans per that, because page 1 talks about impervious with a driveway, but page 12 talks about the new street and street trees, so not that there'll be any more, but they needed to be clear for us to actually review that. My second point, you might need to zoom in on this. Please. Hey, with this I don't have to use the pointer. The garage configuration for all 10 units is the same, and while it lists the 20 feet by 2311, if you look at the actual availability, particularly for this left car, this depth is only 19 feet 4 inches. So it really goes to why this is so compact. There are not two legal zoning spaces within each garage. And even the width is only 1810, which is 2 inches short of the 19 required for that. Now, even with the waiver of 255-29A2, which I'm not in favor of, which is not having to move a car to get to another parking space, per your comment, Madam Chairperson, the Unit 8 no longer has two valid spaces because the driveway is only 15 feet long and there's only room for one car in each of the 10 garages. So Unit 8 only has one legal parking space. My third point has to do with a comment that was on the review letter from January, which is no longer there. This is the January letter, zoning issue number 5, which is 28036B regarding a buffer planting strip. And I'm going to read both that and the definition here.
I think we have those. Let's see if we can catch up with you. January.
It's the you'll see what I'm going to read. It's the January 3rd review letter, zoning issue number 5, 280-36B.
Yes.
Yeah, but for folks at home, let me read, because one part's not in there. I'm going to read the part that you have, which is that section. Along each side or rear property line which directly abuts a resident area not devoted to apartment use in the district or an adjoining district or municipality, a buffer planting strip as defined in 280-4B of not less than 10 feet shall be provided. Now, the part that's not in yours is I'm going to go to, again, this is in zoning, so 280-4 with the definitions. Buffer planting strip, a strip of required yard space adjacent to the boundary of a property or district, not less in width than designated in this chapter, which is landscaped for the full width and on which is placed a screen of sufficient density not to be seen through or sufficient height to constitute an effective screen and give maximum protection and immediate visual screening to an abutting property or district. Here's the more important part too. The required screen shall be permanently maintained and shall constitute a planting of dense evergreens or compact evergreen hedge, or where otherwise specifically designated in this chapter, an appropriate wall fence, suitable planting or other combination thereof. This section doesn't give any of those others, so it would need to be the evergreen or the evergreen hedge. And let me show you where that would need to be. Let's see if I can coordinate. And I'll bring this back. I've got some other points. What I've highlighted here is where that applies, where that 10-foot planting strip of evergreen or evergreen hedge needs to be. And there's several issues with that. For one, this area here off of Highland, where I've circled and then hatched, those are not big enough, and it's pretty easy to figure out it's not big enough. That's only 40 foot wide there, and the cartway they're asking for is 24, so there's only 16 feet left over to begin with, so there's not enough room for 10 on each side. And it even extends past that where they have the road going there. So that's the first issue. It's not wide enough in several areas. Secondly, if you go back to the plan here, you'll see tons of deciduous trees there, which won't fit when you actually put the evergreen buffer in. So it's going to it's not all evergreens. It's going to displace a number of street trees that will have to go elsewhere on the property if there's appropriate room. It will also not leave any room for the sidewalk because there can't be any paving. It's got to be landscaped for the entire area. So that is very problematic with that. And it blocks at least one, if not maybe 3 driveways, because again, you can't be paved in there. It's got to be landscaped for its entire width. And let me just see.
Okay.
Trying to see if I have anything else. No, that's all I have for now. Is that just to emphasize both of the not the street driveway one, which I just didn't get a chance to review, but the others are zoning issues, the parking issue as well as the buffer planting, which has several issues with it. Thanks.
Would the applicant care to address both the parking and the planting?
Sure. The applicant will need to comply with all zoning requirements. They will not get a permit if they don't comply with zoning requirements. As to the parking spaces, there's 2 provided. They will have to be 9.5 feet by 20 feet in the building themselves. The driveway or additional parking not required by code. As to buffer planting strip, again, the applicant will have to comply with zoning, but you have to remember now we're crossing in zoning, it refers to a buffer planting strip, and that buffer planting strip generally talks about commercial developments backing up to residential developments. That's not the case here. The land development code deals with buffer planting strip for land development. But again, the applicant will need to comply with whatever the zoning requirement is, or they would not get a permit.
All right, on the parking.
I'm sorry, may I make one comment on that?
Okay.
We're not crossing over here. The 28036B is specifically for this multiple dwelling within the R5, and it refers to the definition within zoning. So there's no saldo crossover. This is all within zoning, a direct reference to a definition which says evergreen and says the width. And as I've shown, the 40 feet, there's no room for that width then, unless your cartway is only 20 feet wide.
But would you normally put that planting strip on a street?
The code doesn't, it just says, along every side or rear yard. It doesn't give you that latitude.
I don't know that I've ever seen it
If
required on a
this
street.
strip of land had been bigger, it would be no problem. They'd be able to put it on there. It just happens to be small, and therefore they can't do what they want to do legally within that strip width.
Okay. I have a question on the parking. If it appears that you're putting elevators in these, since it appears to be about 4 stories or 4 floors, I should say. If the elevator goes there, that makes that garage shorter. So how is that going to be handled?
David Submergent. Good evening. So the garages and the measurements that are on the garages that are shown as 20 feet refers to the overall width of the interior of the garage. And it refers to 23 feet 9 inches, which is the distance from the garage door to the elevator wall, not inclusive of the storage area, which is in addition to.
Okay. So then the measurement from the garage door to the wall of the elevator is 23 feet. So you would have your 20 feet in there.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other comments from the?
On the width, yeah, I just, we were still looking inside the parking spaces inside the garage. It looks like there's a step there. Did you measure from the door or from the step? Right next to the front windshield.
Correct. Currently, that's showing from the wall to wall, and we'll have to refer to the architect. But obviously, as Nick had mentioned, all of these measurements and all of these dimensions have to comply with the zoning and what is permitted by permit. So obviously, we would be complying to those dimensions, and if any alterations, as we progress with plans, as these are preliminary with preliminary dimensions, as they develop into submitted building plans that would go for permitting and structural plans, any required adjustments would be made to comply.
Any other questions from the board on this?
I just have one comment about the Art Center. I think it would be wise for you guys to have a conversation with the Art Center about maybe some kind of limited arrangement for parking overflow. The art center's never full. At night, it's shut. If, it seems like that would really take a lot of pressure off this whole where are we parking overflow cars issue. And I imagine the art center might be open to having a conversation, so.
Yeah, probably at night they would when it's not in use. I know when it's in use, you know, they're going to want to probably maximize their parking, but I think people park in that lot now. Neighbors do, but.
With the driveway, it's precluded that you cannot make that a one-way and narrower? That's not an option? For some reason, I think because I guess before we were thinking it was a private road, and now it's a private driveway. I don't know if that changes things.
I mean, I guess the only thing it would do would be.
Because we were
to
talking about the
narrow-
limitations over
narrow
there.
the driveway. I don't know.
That might get rid of that wall.
I'm looking at staff. The one-way driveway width would not be 24, is it 18? I don't have the code in front of me, I'm asking.
I would
this.
have to look it up. Do you want me to look it up right now?
Just looking at the drive as it's laid out and your turning movements, like the fire truck's taking all of the roadway width while it's negotiating too. I don't know how much narrower you could go.
I think from a safety standpoint, it's better to be the width that it is, but the question was asked, that's why I don't have an answer to I don't know that part of the code.
Oops. Let's say it were to stay at 24 feet. Is there any benefit of making it one-way? I don't see the benefit
I was
of
just
that.
thinking if it was one way, you might allow parking on some parts of it.
Oh, is that what you're thinking?
That's
Okay.
what I was thinking, because parking seems to be
Tight,
the issue.
yeah. What do you think about that?
I don't know if it's been, David, from a marketability standpoint, I don't know if it affects it or not.
Well, marketability aside, I feel personally that aesthetically, this layout is conducive to not having parking on the street. And aesthetically, we feel that people will use their garages. And they'll use their garages for 2 cars. So we don't feel that there's going to be an overflow with garage parking. And we know this just from seeing other townhouse developments that have been built in the township and in surrounding townships over the past couple of years with very similar garage sizes, identical garage sizes. So to answer a couple questions, we like the idea of a wider road. We feel that it's a more comfortable approach into the development. We feel that keeping the road as 2-way is important because most people are going to go in and out from Maplewood as opposed to through Highland because there's more direct route to Main Road being Conestoga, which is off of Maplewood. Having said that, I'm not opposed to the suggestion, but I don't think that there's any benefit in making it one way, both aesthetically as well as functionally.
Well, I think it's helpful, your point about the garages and that's what people are doing. And it makes a little more sense now why you're keeping the driveways so short, because it encourages people to park in their garage. And if you've seen that throughout the township, that's the trend.
It is. You know, you have to understand that the primary buyer for this type of living is a downsized buyer. They're not coming with a lot of stuff. So this is not typically going to be housing for a young family with a lot of kids and a lot of sports equipment. They're not going to have multiple drivers. They'll have 1 or 2 cars. These are people that historically are living here, not necessarily year-round, but a few months out of the year, and they have other homes in other areas. So the overall sort of demographic of this buyer is that this garage will be more than sufficient for the 2 vehicles that they would typically have. Thank you.
Board comments?
I would just like to add is that I think it's like I would agree you'd want a wider driveway, because now with this day and age of deliveries with Amazon, et cetera, knowing that you're going to have 10 homes, plus you're going to have the access to these other homes, I guess, that will be completed, there's going to be a lot of volume on that driveway. And so, I think you're better off having something a little bit wider to be able to move around a little bit better.
To follow up on the answer to the question, that's 12 feet, which I would consider to be completely inadequate for the emergency services. I would recommend that it stay at 24.
Okay, thank you.
My concerns would be that are those that were voiced by particularly the resident that lives across the street, and that there be an effort made. I know you've done work to improve the stormwater conditions and handle the water that comes off of the property, but I don't think it's just not the correct venue here to give enough time to the resident and for you to work together with the resident to minimize even further, if possible, to what extent the impact on her property and anybody else who happens to be living across the street from the property. I view this as an opportunity, I think you have too, of reducing the problems that are there and perhaps going a little bit further. And that may require a revision of the entrance off of Maplewood. It seems to me that a couple of things could be done. I was looking at the sight lines that you were talking about, and it seems to me that if this is an opportunity to improve those sight lines, and instead of making them, well, not improving them, let's put it like that, leaving them the way they are. And again, from an aesthetic standpoint, from a saleability standpoint, that would seem to be something you'd want to do. I'm also a little bit concerned about access to the other lots that are here that we see, what's called the Falcone property, the Landrillo and Brown property, I think that is. If I'm understanding the action to quiet title, that did not landlock these properties, did it?
No, these properties, there was nothing to prevent these properties from taking access to the driveway. The action to quiet title, the court order allowed the property owner to include all of the formerly known as Central Avenue into their deed. So they now own the 4 corners of that lot, actually the 6 corners of the lot that's showed on the site plan on the top.
They being the applicant here.
Yes, but it doesn't preclude access by the people on either side of the street.
So to the extent that the other property owners had any prescriptive rights that existed prior to the action to quiet title, they've been preserved?
I think that's for their attorney to answer.
Okay. But you seem to think that the court was considering those rights, those potential rights, when they issued their order.
It would surprise me if the court didn't consider those rights.
Okay. So that's something that the residents that have those concerns will have to look into on their own.
I would recommend that they do, yes.
And we're not denying that right too, John. We're giving them full access to it.
Okay. And that's on the plan, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Down this end, any questions, comments?
It seems as though they're taking basically a hideous site with no floodwater, stormwater management, and going to make a pretty nice site, it looks like. I don't know what the renderings are of that. And they're going to put stormwater management. So whatever water's coming off there now, I'm sure is going to be reduced 80% or more. Would you say that? No? How much? Okay, I'll guess. I think it'd be substantial. You know, do they have some problems with parking? Probably. And that was our problem in the beginning when it was here in front of us in January was, you know, where are the overflow people going to park? And I don't know how we solve that. You know, the one idea was talk to the art center. That may be a place.
Anybody else?
You know, I still have a concern that we strongly recommended that they meet with the neighbors, and what I hear tonight is that they didn't. And I think, you know, how many applications have we seen where people come up and say, we met, we realize that they have the right to do this, but at least they're going to do this, this, and this. I didn't hear any of that tonight. I mean, the wall, you're going to put a retaining wall on Lou's property, and not on his property. But you're going to put up a retaining wall that doesn't exist there now, and he doesn't even know what it looks like. I mean, it just seems like you left it out. That's all. That's what strikes me.
Do we have a motion on this? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Quick comment. The cantilever for some of the homes, I noticed that some of them have a overhang as well as a cantilever. So you have a soffit as well as a cantilever. Doesn't the township have a 2-foot limit total from soffit to face of building? And so if you have a overhang of the roof, your total can only be 2 feet.
That's for setback purposes, right?
For
You're allowed
building
2 feet.
For building impervious.
Oh, okay.
Once you
It
hit
may
2
be.
feet.
Are you looking for an answer on that?
Well, I'm saying that just watch your total impervious, because once you hit 2 feet, it counts as building impervious.
Okay. Anybody else?
Excuse me, if, Madam
Coming from?
Chairman,
Oh, yes,
if I
sorry.
may, I'm sorry. There was a couple things you talked about this evening that the residents brought up, that if you wanted to consider additional conditions might memorialize some of the promises made by the developer this evening.
Which ones would you recommend?
In addition to the additional waiver of 27I7 to allow 4 lots instead of 3 lots to access the driveway.
Could you give me that number again, please?
Sure. 27 dot capital I, parentheses, 7, close parentheses.
For 4th lot?
For the 4th lot.
Okay.
And you may consider, and this is just my suggestion, I'm new, so if that's not the way you do things, that's fine, but requiring that the homeowners association documents, which will be reviewed by the solicitor, include the following provisions: that the garages may not be converted into living space so that they remain available. We can't make people park in the garages, but if you prohibit conversion, at least you leave them available. 2, that the homeowners association contract for 1 trash disposal company, so there aren't 4 different trash services coming in and out the road that's also accessed by other residents. That there be no parking of cars that hangs over the sidewalk, and that the homeowners association documents should provide for snow disposal areas. I'm told that's already shown on the plan.
Are those items something that could go into the homeowners? Okay.
And actually, we had commented that perhaps we would even put in ingress and egress for the 2 other,
Microphone, please.
that we would use the, we also in the homeowners docs, we would provide the ingress and egress requirement for these 2 properties as well.
And the Falcone Triangle there?
And the Falcone Triangle, too.
Okay.
Those 3.
Repeat that into the record, will you please?
Yeah, we would put in the homeowner's documents access for the Londrello property, the Brown property, and the Falcone property, access onto the driveway that would include access to both Highland Avenue and Maplewood.
Thank you. All right. Any further comments from the board? If not, is there a recommendation?
I recommend that we give them a preliminary subdivision to include all the waivers they agreed to, as well as additionally 29A2, A3, and A15. Okay, also 27I7, which is from 3 to 4 properties, and the homeowners association include 5 subtitles. No living spaces permitted in the garage areas. That one trash company take care of all 10 properties. Also, to be no parking hangover on the sidewalks, as well as a snow removal, a single snow removal taking care of the driveway, as well as egress to the 4 properties from the waiver of I-27 or 27I7.
Okay.
I think with the snow removal, we wanted to have those areas marked
Right, well, so you can't dump on side properties.
so that there would be sufficient areas shown that for the snow removal areas.
And
That's
they also
something,
complied all zoning regulations.
yeah. And the comment that was brought up about the buffers, that was a zoning issue, right?
Right, yes,
Yes.
yes.
So that's out of our hands.
Right.
It's out of our hands.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there discussion on this first, before we vote?
Well, I just wondered if maybe our new council could put this together. I mean, that's a broad resolution we just did.
Yeah.
We will
not a
tighten it up
resolution, it's a
once we review
recommendation.
the tapes to make sure that we get everything. We typically do that after the meeting.
Okay.
Well, we've had some issues with that,
Yes.
doing it after the meeting. It hasn't really worked out great, so we'll give this one more try, how about it? Because,
I can
right?
only listen to the tapes the next day
I'm not
and
saying-
and
I'm-
write down what you say.
Okay.
I'm thinking
So-
maybe we weren't clear enough in our meetings to start with, is where the problem's starting.
Okay, so we'll go through it again. Yes, please. Charlie, Mike?
Microphone, please.
Mike, so they can hear you? Turn on your microphone.
That they agree to all the waivers that the will complies that they had mentioned. Also requesting a waiver for 27.I.7, which is from 3 lots to 4 lots. Also waivers from 29A2, 29A3, 29A15, as well as documentation in the homeowner, the HOA, which would be that there be no living space permitted in any of the garage areas. Okay, that one trash company handles the entire condominium, that there be no parking hangover on the sidewalk areas, the snow removal by one company, as well as the snow is not, needs to be maintained within their property and not any of the side properties, and also to have egress and ingress for the 2 properties under the 27I7. What else did I miss?
You got them all.
3 properties.
Well, the
Well, yeah, we-
27I covers all
IA
the
covers
properties.
3 to 4 properties.
It's 4
They're asking for a
properties.
waiver of that, so that the
Right, but
4th
then,
property, Falcone, can be
and
used.
still, there would be an allowable in the homeowners as well, for the
Right,
3rd
right.
property.
But that's what I kind of said in the other one, to include that egress to the 4 properties, the last thing I said.
Yep. Okay.
I'll second it.
Are we clear on what's being discussed? Any additional comments?
I have one more.
Yes.
The one thing we really didn't discuss is the fact that there are still a Christmas tree load of waivers and corners that we have to cut to be at precisely 36% impervious and porosity allowances for gaps between blocks. So I appreciate that we got this far. I still don't like it, and I'm going to vote against it.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, then let's take a vote. All those in favor of approving the preliminary plan Raise your hand, please, so we can get a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. And do we have the names while we have our hands up? Okay, opposed? Raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is passed at this point. And I would encourage the applicant to meet with the neighbors and try to work something out. You're better working with them. And neighbors, please try to work with the builder. You try to come to some common understanding so that things can be worked out to everybody's satisfaction. Maybe not 100%, but you can get the best out of it, okay? Thank you. Any public comment on anything else this evening? If none, then is there any old business? No? New business? If not, then we're adjourned. Thank you.